I mean, I think all across the board, 2024 was a down year for the industry, and everybody is like cautiously optimistic and poised for growth in 2025. There's still a real big focus on business development and winning new clients, whereas like previously it had always been about the candidate, the talent, and creating the experience there. In the last year or so, it's flipped on its head, and it's like, no, it's all about winning new business and getting new clients. And then there's also a focus, as we talked about, around AI, automation, this new agent type mentality where you can have the artificial intelligence basically run processes on your behalf.
What are you seeing in terms of maybe modern approaches or maybe some unorthodox ways that agencies are really thinking about how to really strive in terms of that BD, that sales, within the staffing environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of like basic blocking and tackling, but then using AI and automation to augment it. So as an example, account prioritization. So there are now tools out there that can look and say, oh, hey, based on your ideal client profile and the problems you typically solve, let me stack rank all of the accounts that you should reach out to based on those factors. And then here's some sample messaging that you could use in a sample cadence. Right. And then, you can have that as outreach. Then today, as you know, there's a lot of call recording software that will then transcribe and say, okay, here are all the things that happen.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of The Staffing Ring. I'm your host, Jason Lawson, and today, super excited, we've got Kieth Weightman, RVP of Sales at Bullhorn. Welcome, Kieth.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Happy to be here, man.
Yeah, look forward to digging into a deep dive. So let's crack on. It'd be great just to do a quick intro of you and your background. Pretty unique, I think, your journey from what I've seen on LinkedIn, your guitar performance degree, right through to becoming your RVP at Bullhorn. It's quite a unique journey. Just curious how that journey went and anything from your music background that you've brought forward to your role today.
Yeah. It's always funny when people like see my background. They're like, "Wait a second, guitar performance? Is that even a major?" Yes, it was. So when I was younger, I got really into playing the guitar, and I went to school for classical and jazz guitar performance. After I graduated, I was teaching 7 days a week and doing some restaurant gigs. My parents were like, "Hey, you get some student loans. You might want to see if you get another job to help pay for those student loans." And I happened to put my resume on Monster. I got called by a staffing company to be a staffing seller. And the rest is history. Then I fell in love, I fell into sales, and I started at Bullhorn about 12 years ago, started as an individual contributor, and now I lead a team. So it's been a fun ride. And, there's a lot of parallels between music and selling, like creativity and discipline and practice. So there are definitely some parallels.
Yeah, I think that discipline and there's a playbook and there's the right notes to hit. I think you have plenty to draw from. And then absolutely stunning like career. Bullhorn has say 12 years. I think we connected 2021, so I sort of followed your journey on LinkedIn, which has gone from strength to strength, I must say. But overall, and I think thinking about sales and recruitment and staffing, again, many parallels. So curious about how do you think about your longevity in sales, successful selling and career development, and how that, I guess for some people listening today, can think about their career in the staffing agency?
Yeah, I mean, so as I had mentioned, I actually started in staffing, and that's really where I cut my teeth in like the business world. And at the time I was both a seller. So at Randstad, they had this unique model of a business unit. So you would work with one other person. 1 week you were selling, 1 week you're recruiting. So you get a taste of both worlds. And I really enjoyed the selling piece. I enjoyed meeting people and learning about new businesses. And I did that for about 3 years. And then I had a friend that went over to a HCM software company. And he was like, hey, there's some more earning potential here. And so I ended up going there. I started to really enjoy it. And then I found Bullhorn. And at the time I was like, man, I know a lot more about staffing and recruiting than I know about HR, payroll, and benefits. So I made the leap there. And for me, it was great because I knew the pains and the challenges from a staffing user perspective. So the learning curve from the industry side was pretty low. And I've always been a naturally curious person. So I really enjoyed like learning about the Bullhorn product and digging deep about different workflows. And because I had that knowledge of how it actually worked, for me, it was a lot of fun. And I've been lucky to have a lot of success, which is one of the reasons I've been at Bullhorn for 12 years. As a salesperson, as you and many people that are listening know, like, if you're at a place where you're constantly winning and you enjoy the people, you enjoy the product, and you believe in the direction, it's hard to then say, I need to go find somewhere else if you're winning. So it's been an awesome ride. I'm glad that they've, let me stay along for as long as they have.
Yeah. And I think what you talked through there is, again, like, resonates really strongly in terms of the staffing industry, because there's a lot of that selling, and particularly in the current environment where business development and nurturing and selling to clients is, really a big part of agency success. Just thinking about then moving forward and, the innovation and the AI and automation we're hearing today a lot. What are you thinking about how those developments can kind of coexist with what you've spoken about that sales method, about that, that people-led, the way that you've, developed your career? I'm sure a lot of that will absolutely be still number one in terms of how people will succeed. But how do you think is in the current environment with AI and automation, how that's going to play out?
Yeah, I think for when it first started to really take on, I almost took a back seat. And I'm like, I don't really know about, because you get used to seeing like these emails that you can tell are, AI generated, not really, doesn't really hit the mark. So I stayed away from it originally. But then I'm like, no, this is not going away. So you have two choices. You can try to ignore it, and then you're going to be way behind, or you can go immerse yourself in it and learn as much and then apply it to where you think you're going to have the most impact right now. And then as it evolves, you're already above the curve. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier about just, I've always been a naturally curious person to go figure things out, try to learn how things work, because it's benefited me in the past. So I've gone really deep down the rabbit hole of AI and how, just as myself and my team, how can we use it right now more around being more efficient? So client research, like, how can I take a client industry report, feed it to AI, and then have it send me a digestible, here are the key points, and here's what you should talk to your customer about, or the point of view you should bring based on what's going on in the industry. So now take, all of these ways that we can be more efficient so we can do what we do best as sellers, is building relationships, solving problems, and taking some of the admin work away. But I'm really excited about where the industry's going, and the next couple of years are going to be really fun.
100%. Yeah, I do think we're in the golden age of AI too, where, perhaps 5 or 10 years from now, people will look back thinking people today in 2025 had really access to it without too many bounds and constraints, right? A lot of businesses in the next 3 or 4 years, perhaps, they'll be telling people how to use AI. And so now is the opportunity to lean into it, be on that leading edge of curiosity and exploration about how it can help you in your role.
Yeah, I would highly recommend, like, there's so many tutorials out there, YouTube, just even if you Google things and follow, there's some, obviously there's a lot of good newsletters out there. Like Superhuman is a really good one that I follow. It's just good to keep yourself up to date, because like I mentioned earlier, it's not going away. It's only going to be more prevalent. So like get ahead of the curve now and set yourself up for success.
So if we think about, again, where we are in the market of the staffing agencies and recruitment firms, I spoke before about business development being one of the key, unlocks for success for this year. What are you seeing in terms of maybe, modern approaches or maybe some unorthodox ways that agencies are really thinking about how to really strive in terms of that BD, that sales, within the staffing environment?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of like basic blocking and tackling, but then using AI and automation to augment it. So as an example, account prioritization. So there are now tools out there that can look and say, oh, hey, based on your ideal client profile and the problems you typically solve, let me stack rank all of the accounts that you should reach out to based on those factors. And then here's some sample messaging that you could use in a sample cadence, right? And then, you can have that as outreach. Then today, as you know, there's a lot of call recording software that will then transcribe and say, okay, here are all the things that happen in this call. Here are your follow-up items. Hit this button to be able to send an email of next step. So it's a lot of augmentation of the traditional sales process, but just making it more efficient for sellers, which is exciting.
It is exciting. I think also challenging in many ways. I'm sure as a sales leader, a staffing agency leader, to kind of still maintain that authentic engagement, right? You've got all these tools that if you lean into them too much, as you say, like you can see it on LinkedIn, you can see it on emails, it's clearly a robotic kind of message that someone's just, done first name and maybe a company name. So how do you think about, maybe it's a mindset, or is it like governance around, and both from a sales or a staffing point of view, how do you think leaders should be thinking about how to sort of, remain in control while giving people, the tools to, develop their own kind of BD?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to balance, because you've got to balance quality outreach with quantity. If you're only focused on, hey, I'm going to spend a bunch of time researching, I'm going to send these one-off emails, and they're going to be really targeted, well, you're probably missing out on opportunity because you're not necessarily doing enough quantity. So the way I typically look at it is tiering your accounts. So like if you've got your what we would call A, Bs, and Cs. A's are like your ideal client profile. You should have 20 to 25. Those are the ones you're going really deep on, manual type outreach, one-to-one, very personalized. Then you've got your B accounts where you're doing a mix of both the more personalized, you're going to do some personalized, but you're going to have some automated sequences in there as well, just to stay in touch. Then you've got your C's, like your lower level, that are probably not the great fit, but you also want to make sure that you're making some type of attempt, where you're going to lean more heavily on automated sequences that may not be as personalized as what you're doing, but you have to be able to scale it and balance out the quality and quantity equation.
And then, so that's kind of feeding it into the system. How do you think about then retro reviews in terms of, okay, call performance, or, whether there's email open rates, or, how do you, as a sales leader, but also in staffing, how do you think people should be tracking and reviewing performances?
Yeah, the two main areas that I focus on a lot, we do a lot of both in-person and Zoom meetings, and I do a lot of coaching through watching call recordings to understand what are we doing well, what are the things that we need to clean up. So I'm a big fan of watching game tape, is what I call it, both as a rep and as a leader, to help coach your team to do the right things. And then also from a outbound perspective, you can listen to calls for cold calls, but also emails. What are the emails that they're sending? And being able to see at what point in your email sequence or your outreach sequence, which should not just be emails, it should not just be calls, it should be calls, emails, LinkedIn, physical mailers. You need to understand where you're having the success and double down on those types of cadences, and those where you're not, you need to either tweak the messaging or change the sequence of how there's no perfect silver bullet, right? It's
right.
One big outreach in itself is one big test, right? You're always testing what works, and what worked last year may not work this year. And you've got to continue to evolve and change your process over time.
Yeah. Nice. I was just looking at one of your recent LinkedIn posts. This is from January 14th. As an RVP of Sales, here's one piece of advice for all new sellers, and I think this fits for staffing as well. Chase belief, not money. Here's why. If you don't believe in what you sell, it'll be hard to beat the seller who does. So that's almost like the next layer out of fuzzy kind of mindset. Can you kind of talk more to that in terms of how you see sales leadership and getting the best out of people?
Yeah. For me, I've always been the type of seller that I need to believe in the product and the people, to have the conviction, because that comes across. If I really believe, you're gonna feel that as a prospect or a client. And it's one of the reasons why I've been at Bullhorn for so long is I believe in the product. I use the product, and it's, I've got friends that work in different industries like cybersecurity. I'm like, dude, how can you do that? That sounds so boring to me. Talking about servers and infrastructure. For me, I could never do that. You could pay me, $5 million.
Yeah.
Well, money does talk. Maybe I would learn something about some servers.
Firewalls. Yeah. Here's top 5 firewalls. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got to be excited to learn about my product. I got to believe in it. And I think that's, a lot of people will go and say, well, yeah, this company's offering me this big package. Yeah, but one, are you actually going to hit the OTE? Does the team actually hit plan? And two, are you going to enjoy doing it? Or are you going to load every day waking up knowing that I've got to make calls for a product that I have never used, I don't believe in, and it's in a boring industry?
Right. And this staffing industry is so fundamental, isn't it, to company success, to the talent to find a meaningful job, and to economies, right? Matching talent with open roles it fires up productivity and all sorts of things. And it kind of sparks a thought too, then, in terms of, as a recruiting agent, consultant, your product's always changing because it's the candidate. So just curious of how would you, or how from your experience, kind of think about productizing that as part of your offer to clients? Or I certainly, it's a way to be passionate about helping other people, but just trying to make it more tangible for that sales process.
Yeah. I think as a consultant for an agency, there's two sides of it. There's one side is you're not really selling a product or a person. You're helping solve a business problem, because those companies are hiring for a reason. It's mainly because they've got a problem or a project or something that they need to solve. So you're helping them enable their strategy in some way. And then on the flip side, you've got the benefit of you're changing people's lives by getting them the opportunity or their dream job. That's such a noble, that a lot of people don't think about. They're like, oh, sometimes I'm just, I'm staffing. It's no, you're giving people opportunity to put food on the table for their family, to find an amazing job where they love what they do every single day. It's a really, that's what I used to love about that, was being able to get someone a position and, getting a call after being like, hey, it's been the greatest place, and now I can do X, Y, and Z. So it's a really great role.
Yeah. Right. Let's turn things up a bit in terms of thinking ahead. I saw recently the Bullhorn come out with your reports and trends and about the industry. What trends are you seeing that of course AI and automation, but in terms of whether it be certain sectors or certain ways of large agencies versus smaller, we're seeing the kind of puts and takes at the moment.
I mean, I think all across the board, like 2024 was a down year for the industry, and everybody is like cautiously optimistic and poised for growth in 2025. There's still a real big focus on business development and winning new clients, whereas like previously it had always been about the candidate, the talent, and creating an experience there. In the last year or so, it's flipped on its head, and it's like, no, it's all about winning new business and getting new clients. And then there's also a focus, as we talked about, around AI, automation, this new agent type mentality where you can have the artificial intelligence basically run processes on your behalf in the background. So that, again, frees you up to do more of the human element of selling. So those are the biggest things. Focus on clients. How do we leverage AI and automation in our process to do so?
Yeah. I think there's also, absolutely. And alongside that is, perhaps in 2021, 2022, a lot of agencies kind of overinvested or they weren't quite strategic enough about building out their tech stack. And now with better integrations, the Bullhorn marketplace, for example, is alive and well with many, many partners who can serve different use cases. So I think, again, there's, I certainly hear a lot of agencies who are really thinking about, maybe streamlining some of their tools, thinking about the data hygiene and the connectivity of that data through their ecosystem. So I think, busy year ahead, but I think, as you say, some, pretty good optimism for the industry as well.
Yeah, people. To your point, people are being much more cautious about bringing on new technology, making sure that it integrates with what they're currently using, and it also supports what their business strategy is. Definitely different than back in 2022, 2021, when people were just buying. Those were like the golden years of working in SaaS and probably in recruiting too. And that's a big call out to any sellers that are listening to this that got into the industry around 2021, 2022, and they were just killing it. And these last 2 years have been tough. They just need to know, like, this is more of a return to normalcy versus where they got in was just like gangbusters.
Yes.
But it's also cyclical. We're going to have other periods, especially if you got into that time where it's going to be high volume and things are going to be great. There's going to be other times when we're, have similar years to 2024. And that's just the natural cycle of selling. It's never going to be great, never going to be horrible, so it's you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
And also, thinking about the other past cycles, I've been through, global financial crisis and once before and after that. And I think those that kind of put their head down, do the hard work, do the hard yards, actually from a career, even though the industry's gone through that cycle, when they come back out the more positive up market, the bull market, they can be even stronger having been through that experience. So I think certainly surrounding yourself with the right people, have the right mindset, make sure you're doing stuff outside of work that's going to help you keep that, point of reference. How do you sort of see and coach your teams in terms of, when times, as you say, in 2024 were not great? Curious
For me,
about that.
That's one of my areas where I think that it separates the A players from the B's and C's, right? Because we can't control things outside of you can't control the macroeconomic climate. We can't control anything that's going on in our customers' world. but we can control our own attitude, our effort, and our skill set. And what's going to separate the best sellers are the ones that double down on building skills that they can control, which means every single day you're spending 30 minutes to an hour on personal development, whether that's listening to calls, whether that's practicing new skips or scripts or objection handling. Those are all things within your control that if you continue to stack them over time, have huge payoff and compounding effects. So, last year was very tough. And what I told my team is like, look, it is tough. I totally understand that. But let's focus on what we can control, creating great experiences for clients, building our own skill set, and keeping a positive attitude, knowing that if we do those things, they're going to pay off in the long run. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I think it's super, super resonating with staffing. A few episodes back, talking with a consultant that helps agencies kind of bring in new talent, new recruiters, and certainly what the industry has probably been known for, which is not great, is that kind of bring in 10 because 3 will succeed and the other 7 will kind of find the door. Yeah. I see a lot of agencies really thinking about how to change their attitude, and I like your sort of mantra I picked up: never win alone, never lose alone.
Yes.
So curious if you want to just elaborate on that a bit in terms of your philosophy there too.
Yeah, I mean, that was something that my VP, who we started on the same day 12 years ago, we started in boot camp together. And it was just a mantra that he came up with. And it was a culture that he built on his team, is that we've got all these resources internally. You've got your manager, your leaders, we got product people, support people. Leverage all of your resources to help either win clients or solve problems. Don't try and go at it alone, because if you go at it alone, you may get praised for closing the deal. But if you go at it alone and lose a big deal, that's like you could get fired for something like that. So, leverage all your resources and work as a team.
Yeah, it's amazing when I think about some of the the best leaders I've been around. Some people are almost like, what do they do? And when you get to know them and work closely with them, they're doing incredible work, strategic work, leadership work, but they're never, when they win, it's never just about them. They're not the one that wants to stand on the pedestal. And I think it's a great attribute. It's one that I think many of us kind of learn as we go through our career. But yeah, certainly I think, again, a lot of agencies I can see becoming much more kind of thoughtful about how to develop people and be successful as a team.
Yeah, for sure.
So just thinking about then, just wrapping up, and what's some of your takeaways from the conversation we've had today, and I guess what you're seeing and hearing on the street, on the web, in terms of top kind of 2 or 3 things you think the audience today would should be thinking about as they kind of go forward in 2025.
Yeah, I think it's time to put 2024 in the rear view. I think we can all agree it was tough. I think there's a lot of optimism for 2025, whether you're a staffing consultant or you are a SaaS seller. I think there's a lot to be optimistic about. Everybody is at a baseline. I think we hit the bottom. So the only way really now is to go up and really learn about AI and automation and become an expert there, because I think it's going to serve you well as we continue to, innovate in this area.
And the resources that Bullhorn put out in terms of workshops and LinkedIn posts and videos, I think again, there's a ton of really industry specific learnings and resources too that I think people can. Again, it's about being curious about, as you said before, and about wanting to learn and be ahead of the majority. I think that's, for those that do that, I so excited for so many people to really rise in terms of careers, and even small agencies that are growing as well. Great. So a few closing sort of questions, Kieth. I appreciate the time here today. Any kind of books? I see you've got a few books there. So just curious, any highlights, any recommendations for the audience today?
Well, I recently read, and I think I have it here. This was a really good book. This was How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big by Scott Adams. He's the author of Dilbert, and it's just a really good read, and it talks a lot about like, go make mistakes. That's the only way that you're going to learn. Like, mistakes are the bridge to success on the other side. So and it's a very fun read. He's a very entertaining reader. So I'd recommend that one because I recently read it and really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, often some of us, I would say, I'm sitting in the camp of, wanting to always be succeeding, and, making a mistake or tripping up is often seen as like not great, but it actually, that's where you often get the biggest learnings, isn't it? So interesting. Or
people will see these, what they consider very successful people, and like, oh man, they must have got lucky. But like, no, like they've just failed more times at that thing that you want to do more than you have. And the most successful people usually make more attempts than you do, right? So, people ask me, oh, you've been at Bullhorn for 12 years and all this stuff, and like you seem like you know what you're doing. I'm like, most of the time I don't. I'm just learning as I go. I've made mistakes. I've missed quota. I've lost a ton of deals. Like, I make mistakes all the time, but I'm okay with going and making mistakes because I know if I make enough of them that I learn from them, and I'd rather go try, fail, learn, and get better than not to try at all.
Great advice. Great advice. Any podcasts or YouTube channels that you kind of tune into?
I'm not a huge podcast listener. I'm more of a reader, as you can probably see. But I did, I want to shout out to my friend Casey Jaycox. He has a podcast called the Quarterback Dadcast, where he interviews a lot of people from the staffing industry about, business and being a father. It's a really good one that I got a chance to be on. As far as YouTube, like anything related to like productivity, or I'm a big systems guy. So anything where I can learn something about, technology, of how people are using things in their personal and work life. So a little bit all over the place.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a follower of like the second brain kind of method, and using Notion for my private kind of or personal productivity. It's amazing, isn't it? The tools and systems that are available today that weren't, even 10, 15 years ago.
Wild.
Yeah. Kieth, is there anything I didn't ask you today that you wanted just to kind of mention or shout out about?
The only thing I would say is, for the people that are listening that are either Bullhorn customers or interested in Bullhorn, there is a lot of really exciting things that are coming this year. You'll probably hear from your reps, this month around some of the things we're doing around AI and some of the agentic automation that we've got rolling out across all of our platforms. So it's really, really exciting, and be on the lookout to hear more from us.
Yeah, I did speak to a few partners who attended the Bullhorn Revenue Kickoff, both in Boston and London. So, I think I got a few insights to some of those things, but I'm sure there's more under the hood when it does get lifted this year. So, exciting times. Brilliant. Well, final question. Where can people find out more about Kieth? Obviously, LinkedIn, your you're there, 25,000 plus, almost 26,000 followers. Any other links you want to shout out about?
Yeah, so LinkedIn is where you can find me most of the time. I also write a weekly newsletter really around systematizing both work and personal life, just from learnings that I've learned over my 17-year career. And you can find that on my LinkedIn profile. It's just called the Systematic Sales Leader. But those are where I'm at most of the time.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Kieth. Really interesting to sort of, delve into sales and mindset and how that all kind of pairs up and relates to the staffing industry.